Oh, this really is hard to believe, but it is very, very good news for 49ers fans. Kyle Juszczyk came on the Insiders and said that George Kittle is running, cutting, and moving up to 16 miles an hour. Now, that obviously isn't George's top speed, but consider the fact that he tore his Achilles on January 10th, and it currently is June 13th. So we're about 3 months away from the 49ers' first regular season game in Australia, which is going to come 8 months after the torn Achilles. The fact that George is up cleared to run at that speed, they're not going to let him run full speed yet, but he's building toward full speed. 20.07 miles per hour he hit in 2019 on a touchdown against the Packers. I remember ahead of the first half, George Kittle scored against Green Bay. But the fact that Kittle is up to 16 miles an hour right now leads me to believe that a week one return cannot be firmly ruled out. And there's another 49ers player, ex-49er, I should say. This is his name, Michael Crabtree, who tore his Achilles during OTAs on May 21st of 2013. And he's one of the fastest Achilles returns that we've ever seen. He returned against the Rams on December 1st of that same year. So 6 months and 10 days for Michael Crabtree to return from an Achilles injury in the 2013 season. And here we're looking at George Kittle, whose stated goal is to be back by week one in Australia, and that would be 8 months exactly from the time of the injury against Philadelphia. So Kyle Juszczyk's full appraisal of the situation on the Insiders is George looks great. As he mentioned a couple days ago, he really is ahead of schedule. He was impressive just last week, seeing him running, zigzag, making cuts, actually hitting 16 miles an hour. I've been super impressed. He's got another 2 months or so to even get better. And I would say 3 months ahead of that season opener against the Rams. It's been enjoyable to watch him go through this process because he attacks it like such a professional. He makes it a point that no matter what we're doing, even when we're down in Cabo and we're celebrating Christian McCaffrey's birthday and we're golfing, that guy finds his time to rehab. Whether it's early in the morning, late at night, he is always grinding. I really do think that he's going to beat some expected timetables, Kyle Juszczyk said. When he does come back, and whenever that is, I think he's going to come out there and be the George Kittle we all know and love. One difference between Kittle and Crabtree is that Crabtree was about 215 pounds. Kittle, well, I think that Kittle's going to be in the 240s. He might have started his career closer to 250, but the game is downsized. The lighter you are, technically speaking, you're going to be able to keep weight off of the repaired ligament, and you should be able to theoretically, I guess, return more quickly. Kittle I think about him hitting 20.07 miles per hour on the touchdown against the Green Bay Packers, his career fastest split back in 2019. That's like a freight train. Moving over 20 miles an hour at 250 pounds, which is what he was at the start of his career. I mean, you've got a really, really impressive size-speed combination here, which is why I think you're seeing a lot of these ligament injuries in the NFL, because the size-speed combinations are borderline unnatural. But the fact that he's back up to 16 means that he's making that climb back up toward 20. Now, one thing I would add is that I don't know if George Kittle's ever going to hit 20 miles an hour again. And with or without the Achilles injury, he barely scraped by it as a younger player in 2019. Probably doesn't have the same burst anymore. I mean, he's 10 years younger. He's 10 months younger than Mike Evans. Mike Evans is going to be 33 years old this year. So George Kittle's on the wrong side of 30. I don't think anybody's going to be pretending that he's this young, spry guy anymore who set the tight end receiving record with a bunch of explosive catches in that 2018 season, most famously against the Raiders from Nick Mullins over the middle of the field. But I think that George Kittle is a better overall player now because he's learned the tricks and the trades of the NFL. He's a vet. His blocking, I think, has only gotten stronger as he's been in the league, and he's also better at making contested catches. He's better at the nuances of the receiving position. He's probably only going to improve further in that regard, working with somebody like Mike Evans on this 49ers team. So I say all that to really get the point across that George Kittle doesn't have to run 19 or 20 miles an hour to be a great player for the 49ers. When you have mastered the technical aspect of the position the way that he has, you can play a long time without exhibiting the athleticism that you did when you're 26, 27, 28 years old. You can move into your mid 30s, closer even to 40. I remember tight ends like Tony Gonzalez played a really long time. Antonio Gates played a really long time. Those guys weren't at their top speeds at the end of their careers. Probably even for the last 7, 8, 9 years of their careers, they weren't at their top speeds, yet they were still extremely effective players. And I think that has to be really kept in mind when it comes to George Kittle. But his calling card certainly early in his career was the fact that he could run so fast at a weight where he could also play physically. And now we will get to see when George Kittle does in fact return. So the Crabtree example, 6 months, 10 days from May 21st to a return on December 1st. George Kittle obviously hurt much sooner than May 21st. It was January 10th at Philadelphia. And if you fast forward to September 10th, which is the date of the 49ers' first game in Australia, at least the date in America, that is 8 months from the time of Achilles tear in Philadelphia. So he actually would have more than a month and a half over the time that Michael Crabtree returned in to come back, but he is playing at a heavier weight. So I would not rule it out. I do think it is hard to believe that George Kittle is already running that fast, has been cleared to run that fast, can cut the way that Kyle Juszczyk says that he's cutting, but he's also a future Hall of Fame player. He's a singular talent probably at that tight end position in terms of what he's been able to do from a size-speed combination. And from guys like that, you do expect there to be some special recovery stories whenever an injury does happen, because he's been a special player over the course of his decade in the NFL. Now, I'm very curious to see potential moves from the 49ers. There might be a tight end overflow with the Rams. A team like LA might have to cut a tight end. They just drafted another tight end. They have a lot of tight ends now. They ran 13 personnel 31% of the time last year, which was by far the most in the NFL. So maybe the Rams keep tight ends at the expense of keeping wide receivers. I don't know. I don't know how that's going to work from a roster construction standpoint. Injuries and all that are going to matter. But there are potential cut candidates and there are potential trade candidates that might be on the table during the course of training camp, and the 49ers will have a much better idea of where George Kittle is at in his recovery at that point. Somebody like Charlie Werner might be a cap casualty in Atlanta. And of course, the 49ers miss Charlie Werner. Ever since they lost him, they haven't had a good complementary blocker to George Kittle. They've got Luke Farrell in that position now, but he's not guaranteed any money this season. So we'll keep our eyes on a Colby Parkinson in case he doesn't stay with the Rams, on a Charlie Werner in case he doesn't stay with the Atlanta Falcons. Ian Thomas is somebody that might be available. And then there's Kyle Pitts, another Atlanta Falcons player. But yeah, you think about him as somebody who could be potentially available ahead of the trade deadline. One thing about the trade deadline is that the 49ers don't need to make immediate moves at any position that they deem might be a little thin or a little bit lacking right now. And we're obviously looking at defensive end at the same time that we're looking at tight end when we're appraising what the 49ers are doing. The deadline is not until early November. So you actually get a couple months of football to evaluate where your team is, where guys like George Kittle are in their returns. For the defensive line, it's going to be Nick Bosa and Michael Williams. You can really figure out where you're at before splurging or spending to fortify a position like tight end or the defensive line. Now, you may not have to spend it all in terms of draft capital if some of these tight ends are jettisoned ahead of the roster cut down, because you do look at some of the teams around the NFL, they're really, really stacked at the position. And it's going to be fascinating to me to see how they build their rosters. We know that LA ran 13 personnel a third of the time last year, and it got even heavier as the season went forward, and the league and the Rams especially started emphasizing those 3 tight end sets because they saw the comparative advantage. I do wonder how much that shifts over into 2026 with defenses now having a full season to game plan for 13 personnel. Are the Rams going to stay as heavy tight end wise as they did to close the 2026 season? All fascinating chess match kind of stuff. And meanwhile, the 49ers countering with a relative tight end shortage on their end. With George Kittle right now coming back from the Achilles, we'll see if there's any way he's ready for week one. Now, one of the biggest thorns, and Kittle himself has acknowledged that it's a potential thorn here, is the fact that they've got to fly 15 plus hours to Australia. The game is earlier than the standard week one Sunday game, right? Those aren't going to happen until September 13th or 14th, whatever the dates are on those. 49ers play on September 10th in U.S. time. So it's 3 or 4 days earlier. You lose that extra recovery time. It would have been 8 months and 4 days after the season opener. But probably even more damaging to Kittle's return prospects is the fact that the flight is not going to be easy on anybody's body. And if there's any question about his readiness to return, like just a slight tiny question, one that might be erased by a natural home game, I don't know if the 49ers are going to want to put him on to that plane heading to Australia. Good news is that the Melbourne Cricket Ground has natural grass. And we saw George Kittle yesterday watching the World Cup at SoFi Stadium. Says the grass looks great on SoFi's field. Wonder if we could get that all season. The answer to George's curiosity is that no, you can't get that all season. The NFL and the Rams are going to go back and they're going to replace the natural grass with artificial turf when football is played there. Same thing's going to happen at MetLife Stadium. Natural grass for the World Cup. 49ers have to play there against the New York Giants in early December. Don't ask me why. I don't think it makes any sense for the owners of the Rams and the New York Giants to force players whom they pay a lot of money to play on artificial surfaces that have been documented to raise injury rates. I really don't understand why owners wouldn't want to spend a little bit more money to protect their investments, but that's going to be the case. You're going to see multiple NFL fields hosting the World Cup this summer, and therefore seeing natural grass on their fields. You're going to see them revert from natural grass back to artificial turf. It is one of the things that just does not make sense heading into this fall. But George, obviously facetious there, but obviously frustrated as well. Would love to see SoFi, where the 49ers will actually play twice, if you count the preseason. They play the Chargers, and then they play the Chargers in the preseason, and then they play the Chargers again in December on a Thursday night of the regular season. So Levi's South will be active twice in this 2026 season, even though the 49ers do not get to play the Rams there. But Levi's South is going to be back to artificial turf over the course of those two games. Anyway, that I hope that's good context on the George Kittle situation. Kyle Juszczyk gave us the update. 16 miles an hour is remarkable to me right now. About 5 months after the initial Achilles tear? That means that George is running. He said that he's almost back up to weight. I've noticed that his legs probably will need to add a little bit more muscle, but that's natural coming off the Achilles tear. If he's running and he's cutting and he's got another full 5 weeks or so before the start of training camp, I think there's a non-zero chance that he can return maybe a couple weeks into camp. It'd be shocking to me if George Kittle was back at the start of training camp on around July 25th or 26th. But again, when we look at Crabtree and we look at the fact that Kittle's a future Hall of Famer, crazier things have indeed happened. All right, wanted to make this a casual Saturday show. I know the World Cup is being played at Levi's Stadium right now. It looks hot there. The announcers kept on complaining about how hot it is there. And it's like, guys, people complain about how hot it is in September, October, sometimes even November at Levi's Stadium. You decided to play a World Cup game there at noon, June 13th. So I don't see any surprise from 49ers fans that there would be complaints about the heat in that game right now, or that match right now at Levi's. All right, I'm ready to answer all of your questions, or as many as I feel like answering. So go ahead and post them into the comments section, and we'll just have a nice, casual, interactive show on this Saturday. Ryan has a good point. He thinks the Commanders don't want Aiyuk. The only evidence is BA's trolling. There hadn't really been any word from Washington's players that they want Brandon Aiyuk. Even, coaches and front office people, they can't say anything because that'd be tampering. Players can say whatever they want. Jaden Daniels, if he wanted Brandon Aiyuk to come over to his team, he'd be able to say it. Remember Deommodore Lenoir trying to lure Myles Garrett over? What kind of animal do you want to be? That was the tweet that Demo put out there. So when Jaden Daniels was asked about Brandon Aiyuk, the answer was very, very lukewarm. And, I forgot exactly what it was, but it wasn't like, hey, yeah, we want him to come over and play with us. I think that the NFL would be smart to keep this guy at arm's length. He deleted his 2 video posts, which were talking crap about the 49ers. I don't know if Ryan Williams, who's Brandon Ayuk's agent, got a hold of him and was able to convince him that it wasn't a good idea to post those 2 things. The damage already obviously done on that front, but it is worth noting that those 2 posts are gone. I will say that, and I've explained this already in a previous video, for Aiyuk to return to the league, he's going to have to apply for reinstatement from the left squad list. To apply for reinstatement for the left squad list, you're probably not going to want to have stuff on social media out there floating around in which you're calling the team that paid you nearly $50 million over the course of just a few months stupid. I don't know if that's an effective way to get off of the left squad list. So maybe the agent did get a hold of Brandon Aiyuk and said, hey, if you want to actually move your career forward, you should probably delete this and probably start working on some apologies. That might be optimistic thinking from, I'm just trying to put myself in Brandon Aiyuk's shoes to see what he would have to do to get back into the league. But I am just reporting what has happened. He needs to change. Yeah, he needs to change his entire outlook on this situation. You are right about that. Yeah, I think this is the common sentiment amongst the established veterans in the 49ers locker room, some of whom are future Hall of Famers. They're sad. I think Kyle Shanahan is sad. I think John Lynch is sad to see the self-destruction that has happened. I think the 49ers did all they could to help Brandon Aiyuk, and they put the ball in his court, and he did not pass it back. Sometimes it's as simple as that, and I get that makes it more frustrating because you don't know exactly what happened, but right now it's a guessing game for all of us on the outside. It's funny because everybody is always wanting to talk about this, and you get mixed reactions because whenever I do a video that's titled Brandon Aiyuk, it's like, please don't talk about it anymore. You have some comments that are saying that, but then when I do a video about George Kittle, like we're doing right now, every single comment is about Brandon Aiyuk, except for this one from Brandon, not from Brandon Aiyuk, a different Brandon, who's going to be tight end number 2 this season. Well, Jake Tonjes re-signed with the 49ers for a couple years. It depends on what exact tight end position you're talking about. Are you talking about the move tight end, George Kittle spot right behind him? That's Jake Tonjes. If you're talking about the Y, the blocking tight end, Luke Farrell signed a deal last year to be that guy. But I would think the 49ers, if they had a chance to upgrade from Luke Farrell, would. Those are 2 different spots, right? The Y tight end position is going to get way less action in the pass game. It's going to be more of a blocking forward spot. Both tight ends have to block, but it's the Kittle Tonjes role from last year that is going to see much, much more activity in terms of passes from Brock Purdy. All right, let's get some good questions up here. We've got a little bit of time. And I know I've been doing a lot of uploaded videos, and we've been up in the production quality over the course of this off season. I love when you guys go back and watch the past videos so you know what the channel is all about. Hopefully it's keeping you entertained over the course of the off season. But I like to go back to the live roots every once in a while. This is how we started with these lives, and we can answer the questions and we can build community. And I think that it is a lot of fun. Look, we have a Commanders fan here. If you would love the pleasure of just getting completely shut down for a stupid take, I will oblige you right now. Shanahan didn't void CMC's guarantees for training outside the facility. Brandon Aiyuk did not see his guarantees voided because he trained outside the facility. Brandon Aiyuk did not show up to required trainings, rehab appointments, and team meetings. Literally did not show up. If Christian McCaffrey did not show up to mandatory meetings, guess what would have happened? His guarantees would have been voided as well. I know that 1 + 1 = 2 is a difficult equation for some to solve, but let me assure you that 1 + 1 does not equal 3. So I don't care who you're a fan of, don't be stupid. Because this is a dumb comment. That's like a really bottom barrel dumb comment. Let's raise the IQ a little bit, because it's very clear why Aiyuk had his guarantees voided, and it's very clear that Christian McCaffrey, Trent Williams, who got fined, by the way, when he was holding out back before the 2024 season. Yeah, but it's very clear that all these guys did not even approach what Aiyuk did to get his guarantees voided. I mean, some of these guys are handling their business like professionals. Aiyuk obviously did not and is not, which is why he got his guarantees voided, which is why he's on the left squad list. Now, can we talk about somebody else than Brandon Aiyuk? Because this is dominating the comments section, and that was the reason that I take a comment like that and I talk about it is because I see it 100 times on X, on social media. There literally are Washington fans who are so delusional to think that the 49ers somehow treated Brandon Aiyuk differently than other players. And it's like, no, Brandon Aiyuk acted differently than everybody else, and he's facing the consequences because of that, because this is the real world and not social media. But, I mean, people need to live in reality, and hopefully that addresses that. Do I have anything on Bryson Eason, the defensive tackle out of Tennessee? Well, I mean, it's going to be hard for me to. He's a physical player. I loved his tape in college. The guys haven't put on pads yet. You guys have seen my defensive line videos that I put up. I'm going to do a big thing on the defensive tackles where we'll get a little bit more in depth, but without the pads being on yet, it's really hard for me to honestly tell you, okay, this guy looks great. I could tell you what the coaches have said about the defensive linemen, and the D lineman getting the most hype right now from the coaches. On the exterior is Romelo Height. On the interior, it's been Osa Digizua. Eason is an undrafted free agent. I know that the 49ers like him. I know he's a run-stopping type of body, a little shorter, a little bit stouter, and he was a good player in college. I'm in Tennessee right now, not in Knoxville. I'm in Nashville right now, but the 49ers have hopes that he'll develop into a contributor, and he's going to have a lot of competition because they've really stacked out that defensive tackle spot. Natasha, one of our members, says, I feel like Greenlaw is going to stay healthy and ball out this season and get an extension. Wow. It's a bold prediction right there. I mean, the one thing that Dre has really struggled with over the course of his NFL career is staying healthy, especially as of late. Speaking of an Achilles tear, that happened to Dre Greenlaw at the end of the 2023 season in the Super Bowl. And he said he didn't really feel like himself until some time into last season, into 2025 with Denver. But he also had other injuries, and that everything is tied together. That could have slowed some of the progress down for Dre Greenlaw. A pectoral injury as well over the course of the offseason after he signed with the Broncos. So we'll see how quickly George Kittle is not only back when we're talking about the Achilles, but also back to feeling like himself, back to 100%. Now, if Greenlaw stays healthy, then, the 49ers defense, I really think, can make a run into the top 10 this year. I mean, I almost think that's the key, right? Now, I don't think that they've built the team needing Dre Greenlaw to stay healthy. I think it'd be a nice bonus for him to stay healthy all season long. I think that they're counting on Nick Martin to take that next step this year. They obviously drafted Jaden Duggar as well. We'll see how he fits into the linebacker mix. Tatum Bethune is still on the team. They re-signed Garrett Wallow. But I think that you're your best selves if you're the 49ers, if Dre Greenlaw can stay healthy next to Fred Warner all season long. And then maybe Nick Martin plays that Sam linebacker position like he did last year before the concussion. Exactly. Nick Martin could be a breakout guy for the 49ers. Very, very possible. And I'm working on a video. KJ Wright, we put him in the video from New York the other day talking about Romelo Hyde, of all people, who's technically a defensive lineman, but he'll be doing some linebacker drops. I want to talk about the linebackers in specific beyond Jaden Duggar, and not just the tall guys. I know that Jaden Duggar, Larry Worth, those are players who might resemble KJ Wright physically at 6'4", 6'5". I want to talk about the shorter linebackers like a Dre Greenlaw, like a Nick Martin, because, I mean, there's still a place for those guys in this defense. It's not like the 49ers are going to be running a ton of 6'5", 6'4", Fred Warner clones out there. They're also going to be running the enforcer type of linebacker out there, lower center of gravity. That's typically the weak side spot for San Francisco. That's a Dre Greenlaw. That's a potential Nick Martin insertion into the lineup. And I think that KJ Wright had a lot of interesting thoughts on him as well. Natasha can't wait for the first Purdy to Evans touchdown. Supposedly, Evans has been cooking everybody at practice. Kyle Juszczyk said that he's exceeded even the high expectations that the 49ers had of him. And you guys know my thoughts on that. I think Mike Evans is a big potential game changer for the 49ers offense because he comes in at the very position that the 49ers were most deficient at offensively last year because of Brandon Aiyuk, the X receiver position. They paid Aiyuk all that money because it's a really important spot for multiple reasons, and they didn't have a true X last year. They forced Jennings into the role. They forced Demarcus Robinson into the role. But they needed either a healthy Aiyuk or you just go with the future Hall of Famer, Mike Evans. That's the upgrade the 49ers have made this offseason. Joe loves having Evans and Kirk on the team. They have improved that receiver room a lot. I mean, Evans, Kirk, Dejon Stribling, and then returns from injury for Jacob Cowing. Jordan Watkins a little beat up last year. Didn't really have a chance to make a true splash for the 49ers. He's going to be in year 2. Demarcus Robinson stayed healthy for the majority of the year. He had the suspension, remember, early on, but he was a big-time contributor for the 49ers down the stretch in the playoffs. That's a deep receiver room now. And that's before we get into some of the undrafted free agents, see if they have a chance to make a splash this year. 49ers want to stay healthier, though, and I think it all starts with the health of Mike Evans because he's anchoring that X receiver position. Do I think that CMC will get his workload split with Black and West? Well, I don't think it's going to be a 50-50 split, but I think that you're going to see Kaelon Black take a considerable share of snaps. And I don't know who you mean West. Do you mean Jordan James out of Oregon? I think those are the next two guys on the running back pecking order. And then obviously past Jordan James, you talk about Isaac Guerrero, but he's currently hurt. Armando says what I agree with. This could be the best receiver room in the Kyle Shanahan era. Yes. You think that Slick Rick is going to be a breakout stud this year for the 49ers? Well, I think he already was early last year, and then he suffered the PCL injury. So I've talked about it a lot. I mean, when he's been ready to go and healthy, and I know he got shot his first year, and then the PCL lingered throughout last year, but when Pearsall's been available, he's been a top-tier guy. And that's really exciting because he doesn't even have to be the receiver 1. He doesn't have to be the X. He could be the Z. Evans could be the X. I think that Christian Kirk can help out at the Z as well, but Kirk can also be the F, the small slot. Dejon Stribling. I mean, this is a really, really good receiver room that the 49ers have fielded in 2026. Do I think the 49ers will pick up another star pass rusher before the season starts? Not so sure about before the season starts, but I think that if they trade for somebody, it could happen before the deadline. Like, we'll start talking more about a Maxx Crosby player like that if the 49ers start off hot and the Raiders don't. Maxx has already been traded in agreement already once this offseason, right? But I think that the 49ers are probably in a nice holding pattern. I think that they have a certain amount of money offered to Joey Bosa. Joey's got to decide if he wants to play at that amount or if he just wants to walk away or if he wants to wait until the regular season so he doesn't have to tax his body as much. So I think that the 49ers are willing to pay a certain amount for that caliber of player. And I think that any bigger expenditure, especially when it comes to draft capital through a trade, I think that the 49ers want to wait to see exactly what they're working with because there's a lot of uncertainty right now, right? Nick Bosa's got to return. Optimistic update from Nick Bosa that I went over in yesterday's video. Michael Williams is working back, probably about 6 weeks behind Nick Bosa. You've reloaded on the defensive line. You probably still need one more piece, but you also want to see how the beginning of this journey goes. And again, just like is the case at tight end with George Kittle and the deadline not happening until early November, defensive end is in a similar boat where you can sit back and evaluate the situation if you are the 49ers. Can we acknowledge Juice as one of the offensive pillars this season? We already have. This was actually something that I did not too long ago. So just as evidence of it right now, I'm going to put up the depth chart onto the screen. Got it ready. Here we go. I think it's a great question from Chuck. So foundational pillars of the 49ers are highlighted in yellow. And Kyle Juszczyk has been highlighted as a foundational pillar, entering year 10 with the 49ers. Kittle and Juszczyk both entering year 10 for San Francisco. Foundational pillars. Like, am I a foundational pillar? I'm entering year 10. If you guys think that I deserve foundational pillar status, if I deserve the yellow highlight, you can give a thumbs up in the chat or the comment section. I'm just kidding, but no, give me a thumbs up. That would feel good. Juszczyk is designated as a foundational pillar. It's hard to believe I've been around as long as Juszczyk and George Kittle, right? The YouTube channel hasn't been around that long, but I've been around the building that long. It's been a while. So Kittle, Juszczyk, 10-year wall coming up for both of those guys. And who knows, maybe George Kittle is going to be back week 1 for the 49ers. It's hard to believe that this could be possible for George Kittle. It might be derailed by the flight, the 15 plus hours to Australia, but he's running at 16 miles an hour. He hasn't even been cleared to reach full speed yet, and he's already at 16. He's cutting. Kyle Juszczyk thinks he's going to be back earlier, and I brought you the Michael Crabtree historical reference. 6 months, 10 days for Michael Crabtree to return from the Achilles. Well, for George, it would be 8 months exactly if he's able to come back week 1 against the Rams. What a boost that would be for the 49ers. All right, special show. I took time out of my Saturday to answer some of your questions. So in exchange, hit that subscribe button. We'll talk to you very soon.